There are clear remedies for people that believe the election has not been conducted in the right way. And the remedy is to go to court after the announcement.
One Voice Africa.
And my point is simple and clear. We have to recognize what is going on for what it is, and we shouldn't mince words. What these people are trying to do is to abort the democratic process. What they're doing is close to being treasonous. And what they're doing is totally unacceptable by any standard at all. As far as I'm concerned, this was contrived. They knew they were going to lose. We spoke a few weeks back about the whole idea and conspiracy to come up with some kind of ING, which is really what they want, knowing they cannot defeat our party and our candidate. And we're seeing this, unfolding before our very eyes. So Nigerians need to understand it for what it is. When they gather together, like three blind mice, like they did today earlier, talking about aborting the process, aborting a democratic process, removing an INEC chairman because you're not winning, and then President Obasanjo, and it hurts me to have to say this, will come and add his voice to the whole idea of aborting a democratic process. These are not Democrats, these are tyrants. These are people that cannot accept the whole idea of losing an election. They're not man enough, they're not strong enough. If there's a problem, go to court afterwards. That's how civilized people behave. You don't gather yourself together and say, because my candidate is losing, because my party is losing, because we are losing everywhere, or we've lost, and we've seen our aspirations melting like an iceberg approaching the tropics, that will scatter everything and set Nigeria back. This election will be defended once the announcement has been made that our candidate has won. This is something that we said yesterday, we're saying it again now. They should not try to abort the process, otherwise there will be consequences in this country, because we will not allow another June 12th. By God's grace, this democracy will stand. And shame on them for what they're trying to do.
Uncultured Rottweilers,
yes,
who are trying to throw the country into tumult. Dino Melaye
good,
and others should understand that it is not all the time that you display your Agberoism, motopark mentality.
One Voice Africa TV, telling real African stories.
This is Nigeria, over 200 million people. And this election has been waited for all these years. Preparations were made. Billions of naira were spent.
absolutely.
If candidates of APC, PDP and all that are losing in their strongholds, Lagos, Katsina, Kano, and other places, how much do you want to see of a credible election where even governors, sitting governors, are losing elections to go to Senate? If PDP were to be leading and to be winning, will they stage a walkout?
Exactly.
If they were to be leading and winning, will they pull out of this whole process? Would they be doing press conference? If Labour were to be winning, would they also pull out? I also want to advise Peter Obi not to hide under the cover of PDP. Yes. They will stand him.
Yes.
He still have a better future. Yeah. He will stand him because if they were reasonable and strategic, like Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, they would have paired up together. Obi will have been the candidate, Atiku will have been the running mate. The whole process would have been different. But they wanted to go their separate ways. It's liking onto their ethnic conflict and wanting to see a positive outcome. Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu was and is the candidate of Nigeria and Nigerians in this election.
Yes, sir.
He's not an ethnic candidate. He lost in Osun, he lost in Lagos.
Yes.
And so, for that reason, this election must continue, must go on. And they should be reminded that nobody has monopoly of rascality.
That's right.
Rascality and otherwise.
That's right.
A leader like Olusegun Obasanjo should know that when there's crisis in the marketplace, as elders, they will naturally look at what the problem is and rein in everybody. But behaving irresponsibly at his age and stature in Africa and West Africa, I am surprised, I'm shocked that he could come out to utter those kind of very unfortunate words. So my appeal is to all APC followers who gave the mandates that will soon be announced to Ahmed Abdul Bola Tinubu to remain calm and peaceful. When there's madness in the marketplace, there are those who will still recollect their senses and rein in everybody so that there will be peace and tranquility. This democracy must stand.
Yes.
It must not be truncated. Asiwaju Ahmed Tinubu was in the front line of those who labored in the trenches to best this democracy. He ran the world exile, fought over there, Radio Kudurat, Radio this, Nadeko that, to gain when all these characters were in bed with the military oligarchy. And so, if it is now his turn to preside over this country as a democratically elected president through popular votes, and some of these characters, desperados, want to truncate the process, we will meet them eyeball to eyeball.
Eyeball to eyeball. Eyeball to eyeball.
West Africa.
Gentlemen of the press, thank you once again for being here. And thank you once again for heeding our call. We welcome you again this afternoon to another session over some developments after our briefing to you yesterday. You must have read all the statements poured out yesterday by various people, not least that of former President Olusegun Obasanjo, where he was literally calling for the cancellation of the last Saturday's presidential and National Assembly elections. Obasanjo's call was anchored on the unsubstantiated claims, rumors, and allegations of fraud by opposition parties led by the PDP and Labour Party, who, having seen that they have lost the election, would rather want our hard-won democracy to be truncated on the altar of their lies. You must also be aware of the gang-up by the PDP and the Labour Party, whose agents walked out of the National Coalition Center in Abuja on Monday. Today, they continued their conspiracy to truncate our 24-year democratic journey by raising unfounded allegations against INEC, casting aspersions on the whole electoral process, forgetting the process had handed them unexpected victories in some states. We have always suspected that Labour Party and the PDP are the same. They are only divided by individual inordinate ambition. We want to remind them that election is a process, like pregnancy. And like a pregnancy that has reached full term, it cannot be aborted. We are not in 1993 when June 12 was aborted by similar forces. It is too late to do so now. This is 2023, and the entire world is watching our democratic process. The process must be completed. That is the nuance, the principle, and the convention of democracy. Election is a democratic process. It must be completed. Whoever is aggrieved has constitutional institutions to seek succor, justice, equity, or whatever. The APC PCC wants to say emphatically that former President Obasanjo has no moral right to meddle in this election, let alone calling for its cancellation, because he's an interested party, having publicly on January 1 this year endorsed the candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Obi. Although we stand by our position as stated yesterday, not to jump the protocol governing the announcement of the election results and allow Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to perform its constitutional duty, we want to tell the gathering anti-democratic forces that we have the strength, the determination, and the will to protect and defend this process and the soon-to-be formally announced mandate freely given to our party and our presidential candidate, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and his running mate, Senator Kashim Shettima. We are ready to defend the soon-to-be formally announced mandate freely given to them. We are very well aware of the plan of the PDP and their Labour Party collaborators to heighten tension in the country and create general state of fear through their sponsored television and radio surrogates who continue to push false narratives about the general conduct of the election. We are also aware of the coordinated assaults aimed at discrediting the whole electoral process and the integrity of INEC by their so-called paid and partisan agents who wear the toga of election observers. We consider Obasanjo and his fellow travelers their failed attempt to scuttle the process through his unsolicited advice to President Muhammadu Buhari to cancel the election as part of the grand orchestration of many evil plots to truncate democracy in Nigeria. Part of the evil plot that has been making the rounds in the last several weeks is the pernicious agenda of wanting to impose and foist an interim government on Nigeria. This is not 1993. Nigerians in unison want this democratic process completed, and so it shall be. The integrity of the electoral process has been attested to by the international observers such as the Commonwealth, the ECOWAS, the African Union observer missions, who adjudged the election as peaceful, free, and fair, whilst they identified areas of logistical improvements INEC should take into consideration in future elections. And, gentlemen of the press, I have a video here that I'm going to play to you where General Obasanjo himself, at an interview in the United States, did say emphatically, and you will listen and watch, that there is no perfect elections anywhere in the world. When he was queried on the credibility of the election of 2007 that he himself conducted, and he did say that there is no perfect election anywhere in the world. That you move and improve on logistics and hitches that are identified. And you move on and you correct anomalies as you move on and you improve with every stage of it. Now, Nigeria and any other nation in the world is an ongoing concern. And so there are political hitches, there are economic hitches, there are infrastructural hitches, there are democratic hitches, there are procedural hitches. That does not mean that the nation will be aborted. And so this democratic process cannot be aborted. Now, as you are aware, the election was replete with drama. We saw the APC presidential candidate, party chairman, and PCC director general losing their home states to the Labour Party. Our DG lost his bid to the Senate. They didn't call for fire and brimstone. They did not say the country should halt and not move because they have lost their home bases. These are true Democrats. And we call on anybody in this country who claims to be a Democrat to imbibe the tenets, the nuance, the dynamics, and principles of democracy and to be a honorable loser. There can be honor in defeat. We have also seen how Governor Samuel Ortom, a Labour Party backer, lost his state of Benue to the APC. He also lost his bid to the Senate to the APC candidate. He hasn't called for the abortion of the process or for the Nigerian state to halt. The Benue APC tsunami was triggered by our popular governorship candidate, Father Hyacinth Alia, and the party leader, George Akume. In Taraba, we have also witnessed how Governor Darius Ishaku lost his senatorial election. With all these hills and valleys and dramas that characterize the election, how can anyone in good conscience claim that the election was rigged or not transparent? Oh, does it mean that where PDP and Labour Party won, the election was free and fair there? But where they lost, the election was rigged there. What kind of logic, warped logic is that? What kind of reasoning? What kind of jaundiced perspective is that? I know egocentrism and extreme selfishness. Where the election or the results favor you, it's okay. Where you lose, it's rigged. That does not hold water in informed circles and in decent societies. We need to enjoin politicians to imbibe the democratic spirit. Elections are meant to test a candidate's acceptance or popularity. In a national election, you must seek acceptance nationally. Ethnic champions cannot go far, as democracy is a game of numbers. Wherever a candidate has a critical numbers, he wins. Wherever he's deficient, he loses. We have seen all these scenarios at play in the last weekend's election. We call on INEC to speed up the announcement of the results to quickly diffuse the current atmosphere of anxiety in the country so that the Nigerians can move on from this election cycle with a greater hope of prosperity, which our candidate, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, promised them during the electioneering campaign. We are very happy to note that the stock market recorded a gain of over 260 billion naira on Monday, following news that Asiwaju Tinubu will emerge as the president-elect. That is a sign. That is a clear sign of the monumental gains in all spheres: financial, political, economic, social, infrastructural gains that Nigeria stands to make with an Asiwaju presidency. In the meantime, we call on Nigerians and our supporters across the country to be peaceful, exercise more patience, and not be provoked by the antics of the agents of darkness lurking around. Finally, we call on Atiku Abubakar and Peter Obi to emulate former President Goodluck Jonathan by conceding defeat honorably. This election has already been won by our candidate, according to the results declared at the collation centers in the state. In 2015, President Jonathan did not wait for INEC to finish collation before he called President Buhari and congratulated him in the true spirit of democracy and sportsmanship. We urge Atiku Abubakar and Obi to follow the same path of honor instead of attempting to hit up the polity via the reckless statements by surrogates. Let Atiku and Obi do the needful, do the decent thing, and save Nigeria any agony by calling Tinubu now and conceding defeat. Thank you, gentlemen. Now I want to play you the tape. If your cameras can zoom in on this in my hand, so you see the visual clearly and the video of it. I'm increasing the volume. Here goes.
Back in 2007, it is said that you actually said that that election would be a do or die election.
No.
Did they misquote you?
No, I said for my party.
For your party?
For my party.
The PDP?
We want to win the election, not by hook or by
crook. But of course, you know that you know the complaints about that election.
Yes. Now,
far from being fair.
No, that election was fair.
You think so?
Oh yes, oh yes. Look, there is no election we have had in Nigeria that has not been disputed. The election was disputed, all right, but the election reflected the will of the people of Nigeria. And my party had 28 governors.
If you had to do it again.
You think that 28 out of 36 governors, where you have one of the contestants had probably 5 governors, one hadn't got any governor at all, and these governors will campaign and work for their own party, and you think that my party will lose?
You know, it has been actually said that it is true that Nigeria, at least on paper, is a multi-party system.
Yes.
But in reality, it is a one-party state. PDP controls almost everything.
Well, what is wrong with that? What is wrong with that? If the people of Nigeria decide to vote for PDP, should PDP go to them and say, please
in
don't
a
vote
free
for us?
and fair election?
Yes.
That is also verified by the international observers.
Yes.
But not the last election in 2007.
No, don't talk about these international observers. In the last 18 months, I have observed the election in South Africa and in Togo.
Yes.
And if you have gone by what the so-called international observers are saying, both elections will have been declared not acceptable. And this morning I have only commented on the election in Sudan.
Well,
now,
we have
what
1
is
minute to go, sir.
important-
1 minute to go, sir.
Now,
what is the single most... Yes.
What is important is that any election should reflect the will
of the people.
In this country, in America, they didn't have a
in 2000, in Florida, it didn't happen quite well.
There's no time they have had a perfect election.
No perfect election.
The British told me that, in fact, in their own elections, they got dead people voting.
It's okay. Gentlemen, you've heard and seen it all. If you like, I can forward all these things to you to make it clearer for you. That is General Obasanjo telling us no election is perfect anywhere in the world, but these names on their ballot, and yet those elections were not cancelled. And this is the same man now moralizing and pontificating, huffing and puffing that elections should be cancelled. You can see the sheer hypocrisy, the sheer selfishness there because his candidate is losing. Thank you, gentlemen.
On the joint press conference held about an hour ago or 2 hours ago by the PDP, the Labour Party, and I think the ADC, if I'm right. We prepared this statement before that press conference, so we just, the demand, especially the demand they made at that press conference. So I want to take just 2 minutes or 3 minutes to respond to those demands. The national chairman of all the parties, the 3 parties were there, and they have made 3 demands, 2 or 3 demands. 1, they have called for a total cancellation of the electoral process, of the whole election. 2, they have called for Mahmoud, the chairman of INEC, to step aside and that they have no faith in him again to conduct any election, and any other person within the commission should take over. And they called for an intervention of President Muhammadu Buhari in the process. They're actually calling for the president to intervene, to interfere with the process, and do their bidding. So just quickly, because of time, we want to respond to those demands. First of all, those demands are not possible under the law. The national chairman of INEC, seated at the National Collation Center, is the national returning officer for that purpose. And if you look at the provisions of the Electoral Act, at every point of the collation process, the officer who makes that return at the unit level, the ward level, it is final for that purpose. I repeat, any officer at every level of the collation process, look at section 45 of the Electoral down to about 70 or so, which itemizes how those results are collated. So once a unit officer makes a return, for instance, under the old Electoral Act, when there's a complaint at a unit level, the unit officer, can take all his complaint to the ward level and then make his complaint, and then at a higher level, they will review what has happened and make a decision at the higher level, at the ward level or the local government level. But under the new Electoral Act, and I think my elder brother at the bar, Chief Olanikbeku, made that point 1 month before the election, that it is a dangerous provision of the law. That now the returning officer is final for that purpose. So just quickly, the unit officers who made the return and appended their signature on forms E68s, so the ward officers, that's final, local government officers, final, state returning officers, final, the recs. And then when it comes to the National Collation Center, the national chairman has national returning officer, which is national chairman, has no powers under the law to review what all those returning officers have done. All your complaints should have been resolved at that level. If the national chairman at the National Collation Center now attempts to say, now I want to review what happened in this ward or local government, he's constituting himself into a tribunal. Once a return has been made, it is only an election tribunal that can interfere with that return. And lastly, for the second one, is that the process, as it is now, must be completed in law before you can even look at any complaints. You cannot complain about a process, about election results that have not been released, have not been announced. So they want the national chairman to inquire into results that he has not received and declared. And that is not the provisions, that is completely at variance with the Electoral Act. So it's just to tell Nigerians, because of time, we are live on air, to tell Nigerians that these requests are not possible under the law. In fact, they are asking for illegal requests for their own purpose. And they are going to continue to search for an INEC chairman until they see one who can return them as president of Nigeria. That is what they are asking for, really.